Hi guys, Ali Taylor down here at Heron's Reach, and today I'm going to test the Morsh Generation 2 2-wood. So about 4 or 5 years ago I tested Morsh's original 2-wood and it performed really well, and a few weeks ago they got back in touch with me and said they'd got a second generation, so hopefully an improvement on the first generation, and would I be willing to test it? Now I get asked to test a lot of equipment, but the big thing for me is something I've tested in the past, so it'll be interesting to see how the new one performs. But I'm also interested with the claims the manufacturers make, that does the product actually live up to what they talk about? So on their website they talk about there are 3 reasons why almost every golfer needs a 2-wood. So the first one's accuracy. They say many golfers don't feel confident with their driver and use a 3-wood instead. Why not keep the feeling of a 3-wood but with the loft of a driver? You'll gain distance but without sacrificing the accuracy. So that's going to be the first point we're going to test with this club. They then talk about distance from the fairway. Maximising your distance from the fairway with only 10.5 degrees loft. You shouldn't be afraid of the fairway shots. It's literally the same swing as the 3-wood. Now again, that's interesting, because for me, I see a lot of guys that really struggle with 3-wood off the floor because it hasn't got enough loft at 15 degrees. So it'll be interesting to see how 10.5 degrees, and this is adjustable so you can go up or down. I'm going to do a little bit of a close-up on the head shortly and kind of show you how you can adjust and what difference it should make. But their final point is optimal control. So have better control with a smaller club head. So this club head is 183cc. The smaller club head will help you swing better and get the club in the right position during your golf shot. Now again, that's interesting for me, because I'm not necessarily aware that size of club head gives more control. But again, we're going to hit some shots. So I'm going to hit shots after we do the close-up on the head. We're going to hit some shots off the tee at 10.5 degrees. Might tweak the loft a little bit and just show you the difference in that. Then I'm going to hit some shots off the floor, and we're going to see, is the Morsh 2-wood something that a lot of you guys out there should be considering? And does it do the 3 things that they claim? Okay, so when we look at the bottom of the club, we can see a 9-gram weight in the face. Now there's actually different weights. There's 3, 6, 9 and 12 grams that you can interchange yourself. Might hit a few shots with the different weights, see how it performs differently. There's a little, what looks like a speed slot, but it's not particularly deep on the face, but a little bit of tech in the head. So we've got an adjustable hosel. So standard loft, you can go up or down 2 degrees. Now it looks very like a tailor-made adapter, and certainly when I took the head off earlier, it does look very similar. When we look at the club face, it's kind of very clean, and I quite like the silver finish against the black head. And when you look down on the club head, very clean, just a little bit of an alignment logo on top, but a very traditional looking club. Right, so we can see from the close-up from the head, there's a bit of tech there, there's a little bit of adjustability in there. Now, it's the same length as a 3-wood, and to be honest, it's not a million miles off the size of my 3-wood. So what we're really looking for here is, does that loft of the club make that big difference? So I'm going to hit some Titleist Pro V1Xs on TrackMan. Initially, we're going to look at how far this goes, but do I get that level of control and accuracy that Morsh are talking about? I still always think the accuracy thing is more down to me than the club, but let's hit some shots off the tee first of all at 10.5. I might just hit a couple at the extremes of the lofts and see what difference it makes. But down behind the golf ball, I do think it looks nice. I understand why some guys who don't like the big head of the modern drivers, the 460cc, I understand why this will appeal, and certainly like the TaylorMade mini driver, for example, you know, sold out really quickly. So I understand there's definitely a market for this type of club. So let's hit some shots and see how the 2-wood performs. Okay, so that was a little bit out of the toe and definitely pushy. Okay, so 216, 235, but not particularly accurate. Might have just hung on to the right side of the fairway. So I don't dislike the flight. I think it's certainly flatter than I would hit 3-wood off the tee, so 230, 250. And I'd be pretty happy with that distance-wise. So let's go one more at 10.5. Again, just a little bit pushy with a little bit of fade on the end. So again, it's in play. And it's a decent distance at 233 carry and 251 total. So let's just move the loft around a little bit. So that was at the standard 10.5 degrees of loft. And certainly off the tee, you know, I think it really depends on the individual. So I'm gonna go higher, so up 2 degrees. Now, like I said, for me, this looks very, very like the TaylorMade adapter. So if that's the case, adding 2 degrees will change the face position as well. And certainly when I pop it down, definitely looks more left. So would maybe expect a higher flight and maybe a little bit of right to left on this. Now that one definitely shaping more right to left. So it didn't really affect distance, still very, very similar. So let's go one more with the extra loft. Good. Just a tiny bit, try to draw a little bit. But again, very, very good numbers. So let's just tweak the loft down a little bit. And it's really easy to adjust like all the stuff is nowadays. It's kind of very universal fit as well, so you could use any adjustable key. Move that down to the lower loft now, so 8.5 degrees. So very, very straight faced for a smaller headed club. Having said that, I have got my driver from 1990, the head is still smaller on that than this is. So let's go a couple of shots at 8.5, see how that performs. So definitely looks now a little bit open. Can't really see much of the club face at all now. Hit that a little bit out the toe. Just look like no spin on that, so yeah, carry down a little bit, but rolled out pretty decently. Okay, let's go one more 8.5. That felt absolutely perfect strike. Definitely working a little left to right. So all in all, the carry numbers and the total were very consistent. Kind of however I had the loft set there. So that's definitely where, you know, different golfers, some of you guys might need the more loft, some of you guys might need less loft. So I'm going to pop it back to 10.5 and I'm going to hit off the floor. But before I do that, let's just look at how accurate those shots were. Okay, so we can see most of them in the fairway there. There's one in that bunker on the right-hand side, but I wouldn't necessarily say that is great accuracy, but then that's not the club, that is ultimately down to me. Right, so now we move to on the floor, because it is something that should be usable as a fairway wood, potentially for some of you guys. Now, definitely for me, historically, fairway woods haven't always been great. Currently using the Ping G410 and I've actually got it down to 13 degrees, but this is very, very straight faced. And I'm going to hit my own 3-wood in a minute, one off the tee, one off the floor, just to show you the kind of how that performs against this. But 10.5 degrees, I can still see a bit of the club face, so that's not really an issue. but that is low. I've hit that really solid. And we can see there, the carry 224, 253 total. So definitely for me, that is very, very flat trajectory. So it's costing me on carry distance, but it kind of works. And I could maybe see where maybe links golf, that might work really, really nicely. So let's go a couple more off the floor. So again, good strike, just that soft little fade, very accurate. 227 carry, and again 250 total. So to be fair, very, very similar numbers to off the tee, but certainly the flight a little bit lower because I'm making a slightly lower contact on the club face. So let's go one more off the floor. Now that one a little bit heely, so just shaping a little bit more to the right. And we can see 214, 236. So decent numbers off the floor, but like I said, I'm going to hit just a couple with my 3-wood, then I'm going to hit a couple with driver, and just see for those 3 claims, for me personally, does it tick the boxes? So we switch over to 3-wood. Now the first thing I would say is my 3-wood slightly shallower face. I'm going to go just very slightly lower for the tee. Let's go one off the tee to begin with. So that not perfect, a little bit out the heel, but very playable. 221, 233. Okay, let's have another one with that, because that wasn't, like I said, a great strike. So that's more like I would hit 3-wood. So definitely a higher flight with the extra loft. Still decent accuracy. So 251, 266. So for me, off the tee, the extra loft of the 3-wood actually gave me a little bit more distance. So let's now go down on the floor and hit 3-wood. So again, not perfect, but very playable. And we can see there 217, 233. So for one that I didn't really get hold of, that's still very good numbers. So let's go one more with 3-wood off the floor. So again, that's more the shot I would expect to see with 3-wood. Right out the middle, actually a little draw. 243, 267. Right, so once we're into driver, I'm obviously not going to hit driver off the deck, but let's just hit 2 or 3 off the tee. And I know it's a slightly smaller sample, but we'll kind of look at the accuracy, look at the distances, and then make that decision. You know, certainly for me, would the 2-wood be something worth putting in instead of driver or 3-wood? But particularly for you guys at home, what difference could it make to your game? A little off balance, but nice and straight. 254, 273. So definitely not my best one, but further than 2-wood and still nicely in play. So that'd be my bad one with driver at the moment. Setting off a bit right and leaking out to the right. Again, not particularly long. So let's go one final one with a driver. So that's pretty much the shape I'm trying to hit at the moment, that little fade. Again, 260, 280. So let's look at the shots and talk about that difference between driver, the Morsh 2 wood and my 3 wood. Right, so first of all, let's look at accuracy. Now, I know I hit more balls with the 2 wood, but we'd potentially say the bad ones being right and left, maybe didn't see the accuracy certainly any better than 3 wood. You know, my 3 wood was generally quite accurate, whereas the 2 wood maybe a little bit more loose. But like I said, that's not the golf club, that's me. So distance from the fairway, we definitely saw a little bit more with my 3 wood because the ball gets up in the air and that better launch gets me more carry and gets me more total. And then that optimal control, you know, over driver or the 2 wood. And for me there, not really seeing more control, but like I said, that's not the club, that's down to user error. Right, so the first thing I'm going to say is I think it's a good club and it's definitely an improvement on the first 2 wood that they made because of the adjustability. And I didn't hit more shots with the weights because, I mean, for me, that's more of a feel thing than a performance thing. Did I see more accuracy with 2 wood over driver? No, but I said a lot during that. The accuracy is not down to this. The accuracy is down to this. Will I potentially be more accurate with the same bad swing? Yes, because the ball's not going as far. So, but I probably hit 3 wood, or I do hit 3 wood further than 2 wood anyway, because the 3 wood for me is very, very optimally set. When I look at shots from the floor, I think for anybody who really hits it high and launches it high, that's a great option. I think there'll be very few guys will be hitting 8.5 off the fairway with that, but I think it's nice that nowadays there are a lot of fairway woods knocking around that you can really get that loft down. But there's a reason for that. I think most guys need help getting the ball in the air. So I definitely think there's a market for this. I'm just not sure necessarily it's a huge market. You know, if you are somebody who doesn't like the length and the size of the modern drivers, this is definitely something worth trying. I just don't think nowadays, with the adjustability that there is in everything else, that there's necessarily going to be loads and loads of golfers buy it. But it's a good club and it definitely performs well. Just for me personally, I don't see any benefit over driver on accuracy. And I definitely don't see any benefit of hitting this. It doesn't go further off the floor. So it's kind of not doing, for me personally, what it would need to do. But for you, it might be absolutely perfect. So guys, hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, like it and share it. Comment below and I'll get back to as many people as I can. If you've enjoyed today's content and you don't currently subscribe, please consider clicking the button below. Ring the notification bell and then you'll find out whenever I drop a new video. Follow me on all my social media networks, all under Ali Taylor Golf. Hopefully catch up with some of you guys down here soon. Stay in contact.